So hello guys, welcome to our basic post-processing for newborn photography. And again, this is Doc Ian, your instructor here in Newborn Academy for Photographer Philippines. Wherein when you join the workshop, you get to learn safe and effective newborn photography as well as post-processing. So this is a lecture series that I will be giving free online even for our non-students, okay? To jumpstart your post-processing career. And to our students, you will be using this for a much in-depth post-processing that we do during the workshop itself. All right. So for this session, we will learn about my workflow for Capture One, and you can use the similar workflow in Lightroom. This is where I do macro, I call it macro editing or global editing, before I proceed to Photoshop for a more detailed nitty-gritty editing. All right, so here in Capture One, I've exported my files, so it's in the different catalogs right here. And this module, the one with the letter Q, is where I do most of my macro editing, and this is where I process my images before jumping in to the Photoshop module. All right, and in Lightroom it's pretty much the same. Why Capture One? I am a Fuji X shooter. The Fuji RAW or raw files, by experience, is more the workflow, the colors, it's better in Capture One. So I'm not sure if Lightroom has upgraded this already, but I've been used to using Capture One for the longest time, and hence this is what I'll be teaching you. My problem with the Fuji RAW files before in Lightroom is that the white balance is pretty much off. You have to correct and set settings, whereas here in Capture One, the sharpening, the white balance, everything is on point from what I see in my camera. So shortens my workflow, right? So here you have the basic controls, the exposure, contrast, brightness, saturation, highlight, shadow, so forth and so on. What do I adjust? Most of the time, it simply is the exposure. All right. So I adjust the exposure to taste. Do take note, as much as possible, you don't want clipping in your images. So in Capture One, you have an option to turn on the exposure warning. In Lightroom, it's the highlights clipping, meaning when you have a highlights that goes blown out, it turns into red. And as much as possible, we don't want that, because when you print that in your actual print, those will not have detail at all. Again, do take note that when you're doing post-processing, ideally your workflow should be calibrated and standardized. So your monitor should at least have been calibrated using the market calibrators that are available. I used to, it's either the Spider Pro or the X-Rite colorimeter. All right. Alright, so here is what I adjust most of the time is the exposure. So definitely I don't want those highlights, so I will blend it in until it's bright enough for my taste. And if I do get highlights but not yet the exposure that I wanted, I can trim the highlights down over here to remove those blown out areas. Alright, so from time to time, I can also adjust the shadows if I want my shadows to brighten up, okay, or the blacks. All right, so the black part of the image. Do take note that we don't want your images to be flat, so meaning if it's too bright, there's no transition from shadows to highlights, we don't want that as well. And that is why, as much as possible, we try to control these sliders to taste. And again, this is developed through years of practice, years of looking at images, knowing which makes an image effective or not. All right, from time to time also I do play around with the clarity slider, so it makes the image pop off a bit more. There you go, and that's it. So one thing to note is other useful tools in this module would be the color balance tool. So there's an auto mode, there are other different modes, but the picker is the one I find useful. You can pick it if you're not sure about the color balance. Just hit this picker in an area of 50% gray or white, and it will kind of guess what the best exposure for your image is. So for this one, I got it spot on out of the camera because I did a custom white balance when I was shooting. All right, And another useful thing about this is you can mark your images with colors. So you can mark it with red, those that you want to edit from the bunch, okay? And you can actually copy your images. So Command Shift C. So the settings here, if you want to apply it on the next image, Command Shift D. So all the images, the settings that you want applied here, you can apply it to other photos as well, which is very useful if you're editing a lot of images. Do take note that, of course, this will be effective if all of your images are shot on the same light with the same settings. All right. So yeah, that's all about it in Capture One. And after that, after I edit it, I hit right click and then edit with Photoshop 2023 and edit variants, and then we go to Photoshop for editing the nitty-gritty details of your image.